Hello and welcome to FinextraTV at EBAday 2020. I'm Hannah Wallace and kindly calling in now is Sean Devaney, Vice President, Banking and Financial Markets at CGI. So welcome Sean, thank you for joining us in our virtual studio.
Hi Hannah, thanks for having you.
Good to have you on. So we're talking about the RTGS Replacement and Message Standards, but before we delve into the detail, it'd be great if you could tell us a bit more about the RTGS Replacement Programme and what it is.
Sure, no problem. So the RTGS replacement is a programme that the Bank of England have kicked off in the UK. They're replacing the real-time gross settlement system. CHAPS is the scheme that most people will be familiar with there. And RTGS is the thing that all money moves through ultimately in the UK. So any payment scheme in the UK ends up settling between the banks in the real-time. And it works. It's great. It does what it says on the tin.
Sure.
But it's 20 some years old now. It's had a couple of fairly high-profile outages in the last few years, and that's not uncommon. But the difficulty is the ability to get the system back up and running again quickly and easily. And that's proving a challenge for the bank to get that done. But more importantly, the challenge is it's a system that operates 5 days a week, during business hours. It's not a 24 hours a day system. It's not 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. And increasingly, that's what people are coming to expect. And also, from a membership point of view, the big banks in the UK are all members of the real-time gross settlement system. But typically, when a new organisation comes on, the Bank of England have made statements about they want more people to be able to join real-time gross settlement. But typically that takes 9 months to a year to do. It's a really difficult process. The testing windows are very tight. And that's largely a function of the IT program that they're trying to connect to. So this will be a wholesale replacement of that system, bringing in something that, whilst it won't necessarily from day one run 24/7, that's certainly the intent for what it should be able to do.
Sure.
So be able to join much quicker.
Sure. So you certainly painted the picture for us there, and you cleared up a few things. So taking a step back, can you tell us, is what the Bank of England doing affected by the delays then that SWIFT have announced to the ISO 20022 rollout for international payments? What do you think about that?
Well, yes and no. So, Target 2, Euro 1 in Europe have both announced delays to their ISO migration because of the news from SWIFT. But primarily, that's affected by international payments, as you said, and so from the Bank of England point of view, that's primarily a domestic scheme. So on the face of it, there shouldn't really be a big impact. However, for the corporates and banks that are using that system, it's a bit more of an issue because quite a lot of the payments that go through the real-time gross settlement system have come from organisations outside the UK, outside Europe, and that means that they have to translate from a old message standard to a new message standard. And the downside about doing that, of course, is we've got a new message standard. It carries lots more data. It's much richer than the old standard. But if you're translating from an old standard into the new one, you're not going to use that functionality. And then likewise, if you go the other way and want to go from the new standard back to the old standard, then you're going to lose information.
Slightly more challenging.
Yeah, slightly more challenging. And Swift have made some statements about they'll put translation services in place to allow that translation to happen. But the ability to take advantage of some of the new features and functions of the new message standard will be limited until those issues are resolved.
All right, so taking into account the fact the Bank of England is replacing the RTGS system, what should they, but also the member banks, be focused on going forward, do you think?
Well, it's interesting. Replacing the real-time gross settlement system is a huge project. I said earlier that every single payment in the UK effectively tiers up into that RTGS system. So if it goes out, if there's a problem with the new service, That's not just a problem for the Bank of England. It's not just a problem for the member banks. That's a problem for the UK economy. So they can't afford for that program to go wrong. But at the end of the day, it's an IT program. They've got a bunch of very bright people looking at that piece of work. It'll be very challenging, but they've got the right people working on it. We know quite a lot of the people from the bank who are working on the program, and they will get it done. That there's no two ways about it. It will be complicated, but they'll get it done. But from our point of view, we don't really think that that's the key issue. It is, after all, just another large IT program. We think that the issues are more around the standards that we're using for messaging. So in the UK, the RTGS system has a standard, the faster payment system has a standard, BACS has a standard, check and credit has a standard, etc. So it's a complicated environment for people to come in, especially new entrants, to come into. And the Bank of England has a unique opportunity at this stage because of their position as the sort of central bank for the UK. They have a unique position here where they can really influence where those standards go. And they've been doing some work, I think, slightly in the background on things like a common credit message, the idea of which is that it will be a common type of message for interbank transfers, regardless of whether it's a retail payment or whether, like faster payments, or whether it's a salary payment like you put through BACS, or whether it's a real-time gross settlement payment that goes through the Bank of England. And making those services interoperable has a huge impact on the difficulty and the challenge around joining the payment systems in the UK. But because it's going to be the RTGS system, because we're going to use ISO 20022 as the message standard, there is an opportunity here to work on a global standard that allows us to have a common set of messaging for both domestic and international transfers, that allows us to share infrastructure between the various schemes and services, and allows us to take those message standards onto international payments, into other currencies and into other geographies. But the bank really, I think, needs to look at how they promote that kind of work to ensure that people understand that their goal here is to produce that common message standard, and that people will be able to adopt that for a much easier onboarding process going forward.
Really interesting, Sean. Thank you so much. You've really explained that very well and cleared up a few things for us. And I'll be fascinated to see how this space develops, because this is a particularly interesting time for the Bank of England. But for now, I hope we get to catch up further down the line. But thank you for calling in, and enjoy the rest of EBAday 2020.
Thanks, Hannah. Looking forward to it.